Thanks for joining us today. We'll start the session in another 10 minutes.
Questions you will be taking, right?
Yes. Because I think we can start maybe in a minute.
Yeah, sure. I'm standing by.
Yeah.
Harshita Rama, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yes. I think we can start now.
Yeah. Okay. Right.
Yeah. A very warm welcome to everyone participating today. I'm happy to invite you all on behalf of Team CNICA. We have some questions to the participants before we start the session. We want to take the time to clarify your doubts. So if you have any questions on the content presented today, then just please feel free to type in your questions in the chat box, and those questions will be directed to the speaker at the end of the session. So let me first introduce CNICA to you all. It's a renowned arbitration institution that was established in the year 2001 in Chennai, India. We also have a mediation center and host study series every month as part of ADR resources. The session that we are conducting today is part of the study series. So let me introduce myself. I'm Harshita. I'm an attorney and international arbitrator and the founder of the law firm Lex Apotheker. I reside in Michigan, United States. And today I'm hosting this session in the capacity as Chair International Arbitration of CNICA. So the reason that we chose media arbitration for the session is because film and media disputes demand special legal expertise as well as industry and market know-how. So there are also other important aspects of film and media dispute resolution, which perhaps is the customized procedure that would aptly be time and cost effective. So generally, parties tend to tailor-make procedures as per their requirement in this particular industry. And it is obvious that with respect to appointment of a neutral, in such disputes, they will need someone that possesses the industry knowledge. And the areas of disputes in film and media sectors tend to arise commonly in production contracts, copyright-related agreements, finance, distribution agreements, broadcasting, so on and so forth. So today we have with us Attorney Chanakya Jayadeva, who is an eminent entertainment and media industry arbitrator. Chanakya specializes in international property, entertainment, media, sports, and commercial laws. He serves as an advisor to many private establishments and is the owner of the boutique law firm called Entertainment, Media, and Sports Law Firm of Sri Lanka. Chanakya is the recipient of the Justice Fernando Memorial Prize and the World Bank Scholarship as well. He has authored 2 books. One on Entertainment and Broadcasting Law of Sri Lanka, which was released in the year 2013, and International Entertainment Law and New Media Law. This book was released in the year 2019, just recently. So welcome, Chanukya. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Harshita, and thank you for that lovely introduction. And welcome, everyone. And so it looks like I'm used to giving a lot of live seminars across this subject. But come 2020, it looks like webinar is going to be, it has come to stay, and it's going to be the order of the day. And it's more convenient. So let's get on to the subject straight on. And to everyone, just to remind, like Harshita said, you can keep on sending your questions to her. I'm sure she'll check them, and we'll take them at the end of my my presentation. Right. So entertainment. Let me just, before going to the important aspects you need to consider when you are arbitrating or somewhat sometimes mediating in the entertainment industry, let me give you a little bit of an overview about what is entertainment and media law. And now there's a new thing called new media law, social media and all that. This is a growing area of law in the Asia region, especially given Bollywood, the highest number of entertainment products are manufactured or produced in Bollywood. Entertainment law has become a very important thing. Things that cover anything in filmed entertainment or audio entertainment, or we call it music, are the general thing that is covered by entertainment law. There's a backbone to the entertainment law. If you look at it, a large part of it's by it's the copyright and other intellectual property law, and the support structure for, if I may use that term, support structure for entertainment law to go forward is the, and of course statutory law in most of the countries. Countries like US, states like California, New York has a lot of statutory laws. Certain countries less. Europe has some. In this part of the world, we are still developing that. So apart from that, the labor law also plays a part in entertainment law, because most of the entertainment products happens, not most, I would correct myself and say every entertainment product, you need people to make that happen. Whatever created the idea to make that happen, you need people. So the labor law principles also kicks in to create the entertainment industry. And then the most important financing aspect has to kicks in, and there are also the financial laws, the investment laws, everything is taken together to put an entertainment product together. Now, in all these things, that is the shortest way I can give you on entertainment law, because it's a vast area. There are so many sub areas and areas that I didn't even touch upon. But for you to get an idea what it is, that's why I said that. Now, all like everything else, entertainment also will have disputes. And in disputes in media and entertainment, let me just backtrack a little bit and say again what is media. Media is the medium that entertainment product is carried. Now today, filmed entertainment or audio entertainment, both of them are carried in a different medium. If you put it very simply, everything is in a cloud. Cloud is not a natural cloud, a physical cloud which is a server somewhere. All you need is a device to access it. And this is the future, and this is actually presently, whether you check Netflix, whether you check DT, direct to home, or whichever method, this is the way it is happening now. In the older days, it was the books and the papers. Then it came to broadcast television, broadcast radio. Now it's the media, the medium it's being carried out is different. So media, the law relating to media and entertainment goes hand in hand, but the law relating to and the issues related to mediums, which we call media, to bring that entertainment to you has changed. Even if you take private other we used to hire video cassettes to watch when we were small. That's a long time ago. And now then it came to CDs. Now it is none of those things. Now it's a downloadable thing, or binge watching or streaming. So whether it's private entertainment access or communicated entertainment material, whether it's news, films, whatever, or music, the recorded ones, the fixed ones, the medium has changed. So the media law relating to that will change. Law relating to entertainment, of course, remains static, because you cannot do the entertainment without a recorded form of filmed entertainment or audio entertainment or both. Now, you will obviously, but by now, things, it will tell you that all these things, everything, like 90% of things in commercial world or life itself, I must say, is a contract. And marriage is a contract, right? So everything in commercial world is a contract. The disputes surrounding entertainment and media sector varies and hence largely by disagreements that are either accidental, sometimes it's accidental, and sometimes it's intentional, of misappropriation of the infringement of IP rights or the breach of contractual right. Now, if I go to explain about what is contractual right and the difference, it will not relate to our topic of arbitration. But let's me narrow it down only our topic of arbitration. But before that, for clarity's sake, IP infringement can happen in entertainment industry without a contract. I can steal Harshita's some kind of a product without any contract to her, and that is IP infringement. Leave that aside. That arbitration doesn't come into that situation. That's a statutory violation of statutory law. But breach of contractual matters is where largely arbitration, the litigation comes in. So the traditional thing of breach of contract is what? Litigation. So what are the ways, what are the types of, if you ask me what are the types of entertainment contracts that will deal with what areas of entertainment contract, there is so many. And to name a key few would be very necessary at this point. We'll say anything has to be produced, or a production contract or agreement, joint venture agreements, where I told you, remember the finance, how to get the finance, collecting societies, that's about how people get revenue, artists and all that, copyright related agreements, financing, distribution agreements, which is a very important thing, how you distribute the final product, broadcasting agreements, how you give the filmed entertainment, radio, the audio or video to broadcasting institutes. Then laboratory access agreement, that is how you process the film, of special effects agreement, and so many things, and film post-production agreements, development agreements, and then you license it. So I make a film, and for example, if you take the Indian company PVR Cinema, now we have it in Sri Lanka also, they have so many thousands of theaters. I make a film, I license it to them, and that is a licensing contract, right? And then merchandising contracts, insurance, artist talents agreements, which I mentioned earlier, and the list goes on, sponsorship agreements also, and sometimes the confidentiality agreements. So in all these agreements, when a breach happens, the traditional, and in fact still in this part of the world, Sri Lanka and India, when I examine, I find still we are tending to go to court. So what happens when we go to court? What happens when you go to court is simply it gets dragged on, it gets litigated, the relationships of the parties end, and at the end of the day, the solution doesn't come to you, even if it is for you at the timeline it should come. When we go on, I'll explain all that one by one as to what I mean. So as you can see, a large part revolves around disputes of agreements. So unless you have an agreement, so let me come. Unless you have these agreements, which you have a good arbitration clause, there is very little chance that people would want to go to arbitration or would go to arbitration. So all these issues otherwise will end up in litigation, like I said. That is not, as you know, a healthy situation because of the delays and the issues that I mentioned to you. When we look at the other industries, global surveys that were done, I was checking up on global surveys, and I found that global surveys has depicted that 97% of the respondents prefer to go for arbitration or another method of ADR. And out of that, about 48% preferred standalone, that is straight on arbitration, but about 49% or some other percentage preferred a conjunction arbitration, ADR, that means a mediation moving into arbitration. That I will explain as we go on in the entertainment industry. That is something that is we consider that is necessary. So the reason, as again to reinstate, reason for this favor on the arbitration is mainly because the enforceability of awards and also able to avoid the specific legal national court systems, the flexibility and the ability of parties to select the arbitrators as judges. And you have to understand some key industry-specific entertainment industry specific here. The entertainment industry works largely also, this is another part I'm coming, largely on the continuing of relationships and the creation of things by human ingenuity. Now, I said, if you can recall when I started, that every product is created by somebody, and then a producer comes who want to put it together, and then the financier comes, then the people, the players who put it together comes, and that is how it works. So these are all relationships, whether it's music industry or film entertainment industry. Now, I, as Arshita and I chat early in the morning, you asked me about the television thing. Now, I'm also a television presenter, and I've been doing that for 10 years. Now, why I say about the relationship is, there are, the station I work with, there are people, so many different people with different talents. But I prefer to work with somebody whom I work with who has talent, whom I can see on the same page. Now, in a creative industry, it doesn't happen with everybody. Everybody cannot work with everybody, right? Whether it's recording a song, whether it's recording a television program, whether it's what. That is why if you look at even the greatest artists with massive talents, will work only with certain producers. If you look at Michael Jackson, for example, he has been working largely with Quincy Jones. Quincy Jones is the one who brought it up. And if you look at Shah Rukh Khan, we would see from 98, of course he had worked with before, from 98 onwards till about 2010, about 12 good years, he was working with Karan Johar, and one after the other, because they have a good working, a congenial relationship. This is a must. Why I'm stressing on this is no form of litigation, arbitration, or any other litigation should destroy this, because you destroy that, you destroy those two people's continuing working, and that person, remember, people, entertainment industry deals with people with large functions of the left brain, not large functions probably of the right brain, except for the finances. So these people are creative people. Then they go into a shell and they will not produce anything. At the end of the day, the audience and the people will be lost. So relationship maintaining is key in no matter what legal process you put to settle a dispute, right? And so when an issue comes, we look at the way they look at the artist and all that look at it, right? When an issue comes up, the disagreements that these entertaining clients largely what they want is an opportunity to tell their story to each other, find the misrepresentation, misunderstanding, and generally settle the dispute. At the end of at the same time, mostly they do not want to end this relationship, which I said for those reasons I said. This is largely because it is pretty common for the parties to in dispute who have had some good projects. They have a good past history to remember and successful project, and they are thinking of their future projects for which they need the same people, right? So what happens in litigation is the end of relationship, like I said a while ago, and the parties are often unable to continue or restart a relationship, because that is how, in my experience as an attorney, I have found throughout the time. So in the entertainment industry, you need to remember this very clearly, especially when you initiate arbitration. This means large percentage of disputes, arbitration is favored, but in certain, remember, arbitration is so much favored than litigation, but in certain instances, mediation should be initiated as a starter and dispute out except for the binding effect, where you want the binding effect to remain. That is where you bring the arbitration part. However, this does not apply across the board to all entertainment issues. But primarily and clearly, you need to bear in mind that find out whether when the issue comes to be resolved in the entertainment industry, whether we can use mediation at that point or go for arbitration directly. So before we go further, let us look at some of the advantages and disadvantages, not disadvantages, advantages of arbitration in the entertainment industry. The list is there. We all know what is the advantages, the list of these are the good things, time and all that. But I will knit them to why I will knit them and tell you in practical sense why I'm saying these cliche words we have heard about the advantage of arbitration is more advantageous to the entertainment industry. Now, parties to dispute usually agree on the arbitrator. We all know that. So the arbitrator will be someone that both sides have confidence to be impartial. With this regard, when you are resolving entertainment dispute, you need to keep in mind to make sure if one, or if it is a sole arbitrator, or three or majority of them are experts of that particular trade. Now let me show it to you by example. Music composers, if there's a music issue, right? If there's an issue is about music or CD recording, something like that, the music composer as an arbitrator on a filmed entertainment arbitration will not deliver a proper award, right? But a film editor or a director will do. It will be the same vice versa. On a record label dispute, you will, if you put a film director, he might not understand. He might understand. There are exceptions, but he might not. The example, take a practical example like this. A book writer, this is something that came up. A book writer, composer, and a lyricist who collaborated on a music on a musical, and they found that later the director of this musical came in and said he wants to share the profit. Initially, this understanding was not there. So in a situation like this, if you take a situation like this, you can obviously see who would be able to understand this. Is it a judge who has the knowledge to be held, or is it a neutral third party whom everybody probably knows and who knows the subject? So therefore, in choosing the arbitrator, the key importance is to have a sound outcome. So the arbitrator need to be a specialist in that area. Now I don't know about India, but I know about Sri Lanka. We find somebody who's expert, one expert, and other two we tend to hire retired judges or judges. I'm not having anything against retired judges, but judges or people who have judicial experience. Now that is sometimes not enough. We have three arbitrations. One is an expert, the others are only judicial experience, no subject matter. In the entertainment industry, especially, you need to have the majority of arbitrators, if they are three or if they are one, of course, is a person, with the subject specific, not necessarily only on the law. So that is a key thing. Second thing, the dispute will normally resolve much soon, as you know, and then as the date of the arbitration can usually obtain faster service than court. Right. So here we have to understand this is another very important thing for the entertainment industry, because time is of the essence of a contract, right? Because largely, although we will not even say that in the entertainment industry, because you have to produce something in a given schedule and release it, because so many other products are vying to get the same position, whether it's a film or a song. So litigation is highly, as you know, inflexible and not easily adapting to the needs of the entertainment industry. This is largely because the judges, there's another issue which I will touch later also, but largely judges rarely consider industry practice and outcomes are controlled. They are generally controlled and they are generally thinking on the precedents of prior case laws. They don't consider industry practice, except in countries like United States, they have developed industry practice has been developed and written into law by case law and other forms. They do, but in majority of countries, unless it's they go on the legal principles and industry practice are not considered. This is a big issue when it comes to litigating on entertainment industry issue. These issues won't come up if you arbitrate. So, and as you know, the relief granted is generally taking a lot of time. The other advantage in arbitrating in entertainment industry is arbitration, as you know, is the cost part, and sometimes we may think, okay, we are paying a lot to arbitrators, true, but if you look at the time you are paying so many times to the lawyers to go to court or the expert witnesses and that process, you will find you pay less in entertainment, less in arbitration. And here's another very important thing. Unlike a trial, arbitration is essentially private procedure. So the parties desire privacy and the dispute and resolution can be kept confidential. This is very important in the entertainment industry because we are dealing most of the time with celebrities. Now you have to understand what's a celebrity. A celebrity has a massive reputation to protect, status, and what you call the image. Now, if a celebrity has all the talent in the world and loses image, finish. There's nobody going to buy his records or nobody going to watch his movies. So that is really at stake. This is a large part of the success this is because large part of success depends on their public appreciation and approval of their image that translates into Of course, in a television language, we call it ratings. So what happens when litigation starts? The drama can play out in media, tabloid and social media, and then they sensationalize even the minor disagreement that happen in court on a day-to-day basis. You see this all every day tabloid media. So every time a lawsuit is filed, it becomes public record and the reporters have access to this, and this causes huge reputation damage most of the time to people in the public. So in initiating litigation, a lot of it has been found, they have to initiate other litigation. What is that? If you are going to court instead of arbitration on a particular issue, you have to initiate other litigation. What are those? To avoid this, they have to additionally file action to defend the celebrity's image on the smoking gun websites or the gossip news channels. Generally, it is an injunction and coupled with a damages case, because what happens is, if the celebrity wins that his main case, which is fighting with another person, this case which he filed against and stopped the injunction did proceed, he can win this case, also get a permanent injunction from that particular news channel or the gossip channel from saying more about him. Or if they don't have get an injunction, they can go ahead with the damages case and get damages against that channel. But if he loses that other case, the main case, then the defamation claim will not succeed, because the truth of the defense of one of the defense of defamation is truth, and those people might have a counterclaim against you. So see the length and breadth a litigation of celebrity who's in entertainment icon can happen when they are going to courts. All this is why you went to a forum which is public. In a public forum, others have right to report. In countries like United States, court TV. I don't know whether it's possible in India. Court TV reports everything live, and you have huge loss. So all this is avoided in the arbitration. So consider that a very important point when it comes to the resolving disputes on celebrities who are the entertainment icons. So if arbitrate, and the other thing is arbitration is also binding. There are very limited opportunities either party can set aside by or go to appeal, and we all know that. I don't need to go into the nitty-gritties of legal positions there. A question of law, question of fact. That gives a finality to the arbitration award that is often you do not find in trial, because you have more opportunities in appealing on a trial, on a litigation or a trial case, district or whatever, than in arbitration. Arbitration, the appealing chance is limited, and nobody who gets an order want to go on appeal and spend time in court. We have to look at the angle and walk in the shoes of the client, the person who was in the trade. So the detainers. Practical issues I have seen is that when facts and legal issues are particularly complicated, it can be also sorted out through direct discussions and negotiations than in a trial. You see, in a trial, in a district court or a whatever court case, I don't know which court to apply there, we call it district court here or the commercial high court, it's very difficult for opposing fighting parties to put down facts, because the evidentiary principle comes in and blocks there, and it can go against admission against you or something like that. All these things are not there in arbitration. They can lay the cards on the table and sort out matters, which eventually helps the counsels of the arbitration to put a healthy, a nice submission, and the arbitrator to give a proper order. Moreover, many disputes in the entertainment industry arise during the life of a time of a project. Now remember, entertainment industry disputes come when a project is happening. Sometimes some of the actors, I would say, fledgling actors or whatever, they want to walk away in the halfway, ask for more money, right? Or a cinematographer can do that. Or the production, some issue can happen that happens while the project is progressing, not at the end or at the beginning. You know, if you go to litigate at this point, I imagine the time and everything will never give you the result to get the project off the schedule or get off the ground on the schedule. Whereas when it is arbitrated, it's a time limit. They can put the time limit and finish the dispute sooner. So mutual relationship also, the relationship importance, I said, is intact. Since in arbitration, parties are encouraged to participate to determine the structure of the process, they are more likely and amicably to work amicably towards than being hostile. For example, for Bollywood, the success of a project is very crucial. If the project success is revealed to be based on unethical practice, it would definitely taint the relationship between the owner of the original work and the filmmaker, or for example, it's a film, who derive profit from it. So arbitration is a situation where if the issue is something like that, which we find in film industry, arbitration is a situation like this. We'll try to settle amongst the parties and assist them to reaching an acceptable solution than fighting and making one person winner. Right? This one person winner is not is happening towards in a worst case scenario in arbitration. In entertainment arbitration, that's how I see it. There are situations also in the entertainment industry. There are situations in the entertainment industry where the mediation is sought first, which I mentioned earlier. Mediation should be touched upon, which will this is something that has to be looked into, but it happens in only certain areas. It happens only in certain areas. So now, the other important thing is about the arbitration clause. Now, Harshita, I spoke about 20-25 minutes. Before I go to the clause, arbitration clause, I have to say a lot about that. Is there any questions you want to take now? And give me a breather.
Take questions right now. I think we can do it at the tail end of the session.
You want to take it at the tail end of the session? Not now? Okay. Right. Then we'll go to the drafting of the clause, arbitration clause, which is another most important thing. Entertainment litigation is very active in the law. Much of the entertainment litigation arises because of a dispute relating to terms contained in written contracts, as you know. So, as I mentioned at the start, the benefit of incorporating arbitration clause into an agreement between parties in the entertainment industry is huge. Arbitration clause in a contract is, as you know, separate from other clauses in a contract. Courts have held that reputation of the contract ipso facto does not put an end to, or rather repudiation of a contract does not put an end to the arbitration clause contained therein. However, in drafting arbitration agreements, which clearly reflects the intention of, when you draft an arbitration agreement, clearly reflect the intention of the parties to the contract. It's a very, very difficult task, especially in this entertainment industry. I'm sure it's the same in other industries as well. This is because an arbitration clause is an agreement, as you know, can also be considered the agreement itself, although it's a clause. The contract survives even when the performances undertaken by the parties have ceased under the contract. Arbitration agreement is often regarded, therefore, a collateral and an ancillary contract in relation to the main contract of which it's a part of. But the arbitration clause primarily reveals the intention of the parties to arbitrate, and as you know, an agreement which states that the parties may go to suit or arbitration does not amount to arbitration. Agreement. Now, this is what was held in a particular case in Indian Supreme Court, held in Wellington Associate versus Treaty Matter, that an agreement which states that the parties may go to suit or arbitration does not amount to arbitration agreement. That is a very loose-ended arbitration clause. So they should not write clauses like that, especially in Sri Lanka. When you have a clause, you can't go. I have done a case like that. Recently, we just concluded a case where we won on that basis. You have an arbitration clause. You can't go. You can't say suit or arbitration clause. It has to be arbitration separately, or find another way to go to court. Indian Supreme Court has upheld that in 2000. There have been so many other cases as well. Sri Lanka also has so many cases. Therefore, the contract must clearly state the parties have agreed to arbitration in a dispute. A mere understanding that the dispute would be referred to arbitrator does not suffice an arbitration agreement between the parties if the agreement is not in writing. Although in certain courts, both in many countries and Sri Lanka, have held that if proof of intention to arbitrate can be established through other documentation, because that is the principle of contract by way of conduct, then arbitration can proceed even in the absence of clause. But it is always wiser to have a clause written, and don't try to construe that from the construction of the nature of the contract, there is an intention of arbitration. That is going to be a problem. These are applying for across the board to, I think, any area. The agreement that clause must be in writing ensures, because it ensures predictability and accountability. Those are the reasons. Now, the entertainment industry incorporation of properly drafted clauses in the license agreement by way of filmmakers would be significant in protecting the interest of the investors. So I remember I told you, entertainment industry, one of the main things is the financing. So investor will look into all these proper clauses are drafted, because he doesn't want, somebody who's financing film project, he will also look into the talent agreements and the copyright purchasing agreements and the production agreements and the release agreements and the distribution agreements, and it a dispute whether these arbitration things are there in those agreements. Not only in his financing agreement, it's not enough. Because if something happens in those areas, he doesn't want those parties to go and litigate in court and waste his investment, because he's expecting a ROI in a particular given time. To make an example from a country, our average, we'll say a big budget movie, like Hollywood, will take 2 years for production. Somebody invests $200 million for a Marvel movie, 2 years, 3 years time release. If something happens due to a contract between the production or talent contract which doesn't have arbitration, and if there's a misunderstanding, they will go to court. And then will that finish in time? No, the investor has invested, the studio has invested to recoup in 3 years release, maybe in 2 more years. What if the case go for 5 years? So it has to be very careful. All contracts, the clauses has to be there back to back.
Can I question a bit?
Yeah. What is that?
Can we go for the questions if it's okay with you?
Yeah, you can post. That's what I said. Yeah, give me a
Okay.
question. Yes.
Yeah. See, we have one question relating to intellectual property rights. So,
Yeah.
in entertainment and media disputes, one of the major disputes would relate to differences pertaining to intellectual property rights. So can these also be arbitrated?
Intellectual property rights, if it is, can be arbitrated in a situation like this. Has a person given example? No example. No?
There is.
Okay. Yeah. Now I'll explain you very simple way. If you write, Harshita, a film, if I steal it from you, if you expressed it, then there is no contract between you and me. Then it has to go to court, because that is violation of Intellectual Property Code of India or Sri Lanka or wherever I want to litigate. I think because all of us are following the Berne Convention. Because of the Berne Convention, everybody is following the same kind of law. Standards may be different. That is one. But if you write that same film, if I purchase that film for an amount of money, and then I either purchase it as licensing or assignment. Licensing means for a temporary period, assignment means forever. I purchase only your filmmaking rights, and then I go and make a play out of it. I write a book out of your script, and then I probably make a television series also out of it. Then what has happened? I have clearly violated your licensing rights, given licensing or assignment means forever, rights given only for a specific purpose. So in this is what I said initially, if you can remember, initially I said, when you purchase copyright, or when you purchase a script, which is the script of creation, a song lyric or a film script, are the general things, is the creation of a human ingenuity. And that creation, when I want to put it to a product, entertainment product, I have to purchase it on the right way. In that purchasing contract, there should be an arbitration clause. In the second situation I explained to you, if there's an arbitration clause, yes, we can go to arbitrate. Of course, in that contract clause, if there's no arbitration clause, without arbitration clauses later, the parties out of consent can adopt that. But if they don't want to adopt that, then they can go to traditional litigation. Yes, that is provided the copyright or the intellectual property right of whatever the product that was taken from A to B was taken via a contract. If it was not taken via a contract, if it was robbed, stolen, then obviously you can't go for arbitration. You have to go for litigation. That's criminal penalties for stealing IP, as well as civil infringement rights. Is that answering your question?
Yes, thank you. So there is another question, which is, so in India, there are film chambers who have effective control over the artists and technical persons, and these chambers or union invariably solve the disputes among themselves. So this being the practice, why should one come out of the traditional process at all?
What is the last part of the question? If this is the practice?
practice, then why should one come out of the traditional practice? So they have their unions for settling the disputes between the members, correct?
Yeah.
If this is the general practice, so why should they even come out of the traditional practice and opt for alternative dispute resolution?
No, simply answer is there in the question. You don't have to come out. I don't know what is the Indian unions, but I will. That was actually to be my next following starting point. Now in the United States, we all heard of WGA, SAG, and DGA. WGA is Writers Guild Association, SAG is Screen Actors Guild Association, and DGA is Director Guild Association, and there are so many associations like that. So what I think the same model Indian unions would have. They are Writers Guild Association represent the motion picture writers, and when you become a member of that, and when your product goes out of that, there is an arbitration clause that is set in most of those clauses. Now, if you are to answer the question, if you are a member of that, obviously the guild or the union will fight for you if your violation has happened. But my understanding in the US system, most of these guilds will first have a grievance process. A grievance process is where you have to make a complaint, and the complaint like the internal investigation by the union that has to be done, and you have to prove things there, like in office, and then it will go to a arbitral process. And that is because they want to see whether it is a real. So yes, if you are in a one of those institutions like that, you don't have to. If your product is basically protected by it, if you are in the guild. Now in America, if you act in one or couple of number of films and recognized in certain way, you don't win awards, you automatically become Screen Actors Guild Awards. I know so many people. I have friends whose wives are just acted in one or two films, they become members and they get protected. Of course, you pay a fee. Directors also, writers. 60,000 writers are there in Hollywood. Only 4,000 work is sold for a year. These are statistics. But the rest are also protected because they are signed up. Is that answering that question? Yeah, you don't have to do any litigation arbitration on your own. The guild will fight for it. It's like you're in a cup.
Okay, thank you. So there's another question from Shanmugam. So he says, now films are uploaded in OTT platforms. In the event of any dispute between producers and OTT platform, where and how to decide on disputes through arbitration?
Yeah, again, the contract. What is the contract they have with the OTT platform? Do they have a contract with the OTT platform which says arbitration clause? If there's a clause, then you can go. If they don't have a clause, then you probably can agree to go to arbitration, as we all know. Otherwise, you'll have to go for litigation. Mm-hmm. Is there anything more specific in that question? Is there anything more he has asked you there?
There is nothing specific about it. He's just asked about the OTT platforms. But Ashok has come up with another question, which says, when films are uploaded to be telecasted through satellite, is there a potential place of international arbitration? So how to use that? So
yeah, I was actually...
international arbitration. That's the question, I believe.
Can you come again with the question? I missed one.
Uploaded to be telecasted through satellite, this is a potential place of international arbitration, and how do you see that?
Yeah, generally the most suitable arbitration in that situation will be the WIPO arbitration. I will explain that now, which was to be my tail end explanation, because there's a report. WIPO is the World Intellectual Property Organization, as you know. World Intellectual Property Organization has a arbitration system for film and disputes in film and other things. So there's two types of arbitrations there: mediation arbitration, expedited arbitration rules, as well as normal arbitration. What happens is there if you you can sign a WIPO contract, and you can there is a future contract as well as that means you can get a WIPO system arbitration involved in your apply to them and find that they will carry out the arbitration in an existing one. Or else, if you want them to existing dispute which has been partly heard in another place, whatever the unsettled position, you can take it to the WIPO. WIPO arbitration has its own arbitration panel. You can't bring in your own arbitration. There's a list of people who are specialists, and those specialists will be nominated. Generally, it's a sole arbitrator if it is expedited arbitration, but there are separate rules. And there's a 3 arbitration you can appoint from them. and they are, if it is a normal arbitration will take, that's for both film and other media. So if there's international violations across the several countries, you can do that. But and of course that will bind everybody who has signed for WIPO, every country which has signed for them to, they can enforce it through their local mechanism, like WIPO has their national level partners like the Indian Copyright Office, Sri Lankan Copyright Office, things like that. They can enforce it through that if those arbitrations are not used. This is a relatively new thing that the WIPO has done, and that is a very important thing. The other option for that question is depending on the area. Now you'll say, if this is a very wide question. If the film was we'll say covering a particular area, we'll say Star India. If you take the Star Network has channels that we see in South Asia are not the same channels. Somebody from Singapore, you'll see, I know my friend Anil is in this group, so he will not see a different thing in the same brand. So if it is, we'll say somebody has violated somebody film and put it on Star World, which is seen in the Indian footprint, we call it, a particular area, it will be wiser for you to find where exactly that channel initiates, or the channel's broadcasting point is there. And if they are violating that, you should go to, you can arbitrate it there. Of course, depending on whether you have an agreement, you can arbitrate it in that area if the dispute, if the location is left neutral. And most of these international film selling distribution things, location is not really net neutral. What I may say that it's left open for large areas. So there is no point, for example, going and arbitrating in Singapore for a dispute where a Star TV example, I'm just taking Star TV, Star TV India has violated that because it is not seen in that country. The violation doesn't take place there. So that is another way of looking at it.
Okay, so we have another question from Saravnan. He said,
who is that? Saravanan?
Saravnan, yeah. So his question is relating to privacy issues. So movies are aired from a website by infringing a registered trademark. That is, domain name is infringed. The owner of registered mark is raising a domain name dispute arbitration. But there is no agreement between the registered trademark owner and the person who infringed the domain name. So in the absence of any privity of contract, whether dispute resolution through arbitration is maintainable.
Hanshisa, you'll have to come back on the question because I missed the first part of the question. If you just rephrase the question, what is it? It is like somebody can check whether I got it correct. There's a dispute about somebody's trademark, same name has been copied and taken as a domain name.
Correct. He's asking about the domain name dispute. How when an owner of a registered mark is raising a domain name dispute in arbitration, but there is no agreement between the registered trademark owner and the person who registered the domain name. So it's just
domain
shared through satellites, and he has a registered domain name, but the person who's actually violated and this person has no contract between each other. And he asks if this is maintainable through arbitration, or is it possible for resolution through arbitration?
Domain name arbitration again can happen through WIPO. WIPO has another, World Intellectual Property Organization has another system to sort out domain name. But trademark, I'm not very clear. If we are talking of the same domain name and the same, see, I can have a domain name for a product which you have the trademark. And trademark, you have to understand, trademark is the right of trademark is territorial in nature. I can register in Sri Lanka and you can register in India if I have not taken the step to register. Every country you don't get a trademark right? So, but if you have a domain name, which I don't know if I'm answering, I got this question correct. So if you have a domain name dispute, you can go to WIPO, and WIPO is the best place to arbitrate that. The landmark case about WIPO arbitration in domain name in the year 2000 was Julia Roberts' case. Julia Roberts fought all the way to WIPO on a cyber squatters case because somebody has registered her name juliaroberts.com and got it, and she fought it, and then the courts found the WIPO arbitration found she had a common law right for her name, and this person could not show an equal right for that person's name because that person was not Julia Roberts. So on the same basis, you can go. There are several other authorities as well, but the trademark, if it has to be registered in each country except European Union, where you can register in European Union and get a 38 country coverage. Does that answer your question?
Yes, no? I think it does. I don't hear from him, so maybe he's satisfied.
No. If he's not clear enough to rephrase, take it up online for a while.
Continue with your content, and then we'll take the questions a bit later. Okay.
Yes, that's good. Okay, now let's come to the other side. We're talking a lot about America and Western world. Now, India, if you look at it, India is with the highest number of film producers and producing approximately 1,000 movies. In Indian film industry, the same concerns arise when it comes to litigation and like in in same time. So what you have to remember is confidentiality, privacy, party autonomy, speed, informality. The value of that is there in arbitration in no matter which country it is. I want to give me a second. Touch base on one of the other things I want to go through with you before I go into other details about a sample arbitration clause, which in entertainment industry which we draft. One of the key points it says is any controversy or claim arising out of or relating to arbitration, validity, construction, or performance of this agreement or the breach thereof shall be resolved by arbitration according to the rules and procedures of a particular association. Now remember, in entertainment industry, perfect arbitration clauses mandatorily mention the rules and procedures of where it is held, because such rules and procedures are incorporated herein and made part and parcel of this agreement by reference. That is something we do in entertainment agreement to avoid misunderstandings. I will, as I go down further, I will find out why I'm saying that. So the parties doing that should remember to incorporate in a general arbitration clause the rules and regulations as part of the contracting entertainment agreements. Now, one of the things that when you come to what other thing which we found out in discussing, like I was just talking about India. As you know, this part of the world, the entertainment law is developing because people are becoming more corporate and everything. So because of $1 million lawsuits that we're fighting, a lot of people in this part of the world has become try to enter into agreements, and most of those agreements are buying rights and productions and stuff like that. So if in any agreement, it is nice, it is helpful to have the arbitration. However, one thing you have to remember in deciding, interpreting those agreements, in deciding whether there's a dispute in those agreements or not, has to go to the whether in a dispute, in a contract, whether it has to go to arbitration or not, as in the clause, or go for litigation, is where the two contradictory constructions are possible. When the two contradictory constructions are possible for the same thing, construction has to be given effect to the arbitration agreement and not for the litigation. This was argued out in an Indian case, Tandy Film Entertainment Limited versus 4 Frames Private Limited. It was a exclusive license agreement. I mean, if I explain the case, it will be helpful. Exclusive license agreement was entered between two parties. Now here the plaintiff contention was copyright infringement. Now this was a copyright agreement, infringement on the argument, copyright infringement, and the argument was that since the dispute over music rights was unrelated to the agreement signed by the parties, now here there had been no copyright agreement, then they would not be governed by the arbitration, but the courts said they overruled the situation by giving giving effect to the construction of the arbitration agreement should be preferred when there are two contradictory situations. So what does it say in simple terms? If you find when you are in a dispute, the dispute can be brought under arbitration or it can be brought under litigation. And if the arbitration clause is there, is very clearly there, then preference has to be given to arbitration. Unless it is something that is falling completely outside of the contract. You can't say it is something that is falling outside of the contract when the contract itself is contemplated that. If it's not contemplated, it's a different thing. If it's contemplated, there's a doubt whether dispute can be taken to arbitration or litigation. If the arbitration clause is there, you have to give it to the arbitration clause. That is a cardinal principle that was justified in that Supreme Court case of India. Now, there are other clauses which, other than the arbitration clause, which you have to keep in mind, very specially for entertainment. Those two areas are what we call the equally important, called the choice of law clause, which is one clause, and there is which is equally, and the forum clause, choice of law and where it is going to happen. Now, why do I say this? 90% of the entertainment agreements dealing with entertainment products divide into music, like I said, or film entertainment, and deals either production, financing, creation, or distribution, or labor. Labor means hired contract. Now, for example, a film may have a script owner from one country, funded by another country, produced by another country, and then production is distributed worldwide. This is the normal happening. So any of those production, financing, creation, distribution disputes can happen in several different places, and especially in distribution contracts, it can happen worldwide. Hence, attention has to be paid mainly to choice of law and the forum clause where you are going to sell this. Generally, this is within your control. If the attention is paid, it is within your control. If the attention is with regard to the financing part and the production part on those areas, because you know where you are going to shoot it, you know who's going to finance it from which country. But when it comes to distribution, you are not in control. It's going to the world. It's going worldwide. So you have to be very careful in choosing those processes. So what happens if you? It's a very difficult thing. It's easy for me to say. It's a very difficult thing how to choose those, because I'll tell you what the problem when you the forum clause and the choice of law clause brings you. Practically, this is the problem. Let me take the biggest complicated type of agreement. That is called, which is going cross-border. Typical cross-border agreement in the industry is the international distribution and marketing. In such cases, if you use the standard choice of law and standard forum clauses, it will lead to completely different outcomes, because it will depend on the importance of chosen forum and the legal system, and those legal systems and chosen forums might not give industry and custom practices when they are in dispute. Now, let me explain this through a example. Now, you know, there's a thing called pre-sale distribution agreement. Like in the apartment industry, film industry also does pre-sale of the films. That is something filmmakers often do is to finance the production of a film. They grant the distributing rights to films before it has been produced in exchange of advanced budget, agree to pay the balance upon delivery. In the film industry, often the term pre-sale agreement is what is first hatched up, that is first agreed and signed. After the pre-sale agreement, only the negotiations of the formal production, financing, ROI agreements happen. Now, the formal agreements here is a film financing agreement, obviously. By the time you come to the negotiation of the formal agreements, now the film is happening. Money has been given, mobilization fund has been given, film is happening. The what happens is it can come to a time where it will fall out. The deal will not fall out. Pre-sale agreement is there, mobilization fund is paid. In the highly competitive world, they can't agree to financial agreement. So, while the pre-sale distribution contract is on, the negotiation of the formal agreement fails. What happens then? Here, what generally happens is one party, generally the person who got the money, asserts that the primary agreement of pre-sale is the person who has to give more money is unenforceable, and then the party who wants to enforce the deal, relies on the custom and practice of the film industry in developed countries generally, and say, no, the pre-sale agreement is there, based on that we can go forward. In a situation like this, the custom and practice of the film industry tends to give these preliminary agreements the same binding effect as formal comprehensive agreement. It's like a common law principle. This is common in many countries. For example, countries like United States, the large entertainment industry, courts themselves have evolved legal principles based and give effect to considerable weightage of these kind of custom and practice, which may not be accepted. But what happens in contracts, in contrast, is arbitrators outside US, for example, do not consider this custom and practice if as it appears, if it doesn't appear in the contract in plain language, right? Or if it is not incorporated as a term of the agreement. Those arbitrators from those jurisdictions will, because they lack the legal background and the training and the difficulty in determining the effects and giving effect to the custom and practice due to lack of knowledge, it will end up the arbitration saying these things cannot be done. So it is therefore crucial in drafting arbitration clauses to consider very carefully how certain forums where you are going to have the arbitration and the legal system, the types of arbitrators may weigh the custom and practice in a case of eventual. Now, I took it to a very deep position. It's like academic legal argument, which general people might not be interested. But in a scenario like this, what was explained is that you have to it's not the question of drafting. You have to study different legal systems and approach in arbitration that are done in different countries where your film, by way of distribution or production, or production also it can happen. You can go and shoot in different countries. There may be a dispute, and the arbitration clause can come, and so many issues. So the arbitration culture, if I may use that term, the legal culture has to be checked upon before landing in just the choice of law and choice of forum clauses in film entertainment. You have a question now, Harshita, or can I go ahead?
No, just go ahead. I mean, we could.
Okay. So the other important thing is we know there are a lot of places you can go and do your arbitration rules, like the ICC arbitration. Film industry also has, the Western world has arbitration called Independent Television and Film Alliance, IFTA. IFTA has guidelines to which the parties have agreed to submit, and the instance IFTA arbitrator will be assigned. They can assign IFTA arbitrators. Rules are considered standard practice of the industry. So there are a lot of industries like that in the UK. There are places. But another important thing other than that, what I want to find out is the interim measures that are taken in arbitration matters. One of the very relevant things applicable for entertainment industry also is the interim measures of protection. In many countries, including the Indian Arbitration Act Section 9 and the English Arbitration Act Section 44, and Sri Lankan law, of course, did not directly provide, but the Sri Lankan Supreme Court's held to that effect, provides an opportunity for the parties to an arbitration to seek relief before and during the commencement of the arbitration proceedings. Not only that, but also after passing the arbitral award, but before the enforcement of the award. What they do is the interim measures are given for prevention, rather preservation of interim custody or sale of goods, which are the subject matter of the arbitration agreement. Securing also the amount of this in the dispute also is something where you can give interim measures. That means you can go to court and get it. This is very vital in the entertainment industry, both in film and music. If there's anywhere in the industry, this is very applicable, just like perishable goods. This is very vital. Now, why I say that, we can recall my speaking. I mentioned one of the main things about the film entertainment is the script, music composition, or the script, or the filmed parts which you are going to use. Now, while arbitration is there, we'll say the arbitration about the copyright, which I was talking to Archana about the copyright. If there is a possibility that person whom you are fighting the copyright script or the music composition or the film lyrics or whatever, it has a possibility of changing that or running away with that, interim measures has to be taken. So arbitrators, lawyers who are trying to go for arbitration with entertainment products, remember the word is entertainment properties. Filmed entertainment and recorded music are the main two of this top of the line. All others are support structure. So you have to make sure that you take whatever interim measure you have, whatever provided by your country's act. I know the English Act is a little restrictive. Indian Act is very broad in this. It's one of the most exemplary acts. Sri Lankan Act is silent. We luckily got the courts to intervene in that. So protect your, preserve the property that is the subject matter of arbitration, especially when it's a copyright or when it's a talent right, whether it's some kind of a thing which is the heart of the product. That has to be done. So interim measures are, there's a lot, taking interim measures via court procedure in doing arbitration in the entertainment industry is must.
I have one question here. So when
Sorry?
I have a question here.
Go ahead.
As a television host for popular national television in Sri Lanka, and I know you have hosted shows like Law and Order and Diplomatic Faces, correct?
Yeah.
How has your experience been as a host in a teleseries and then coming as a successful media arbitrator? I'm sure it has helped you a lot, but your experience in that, please.
Thank you for that question, because you took me out of this boredom of the one subject. So television was always a passion, but getting into my television was accidental, because I was always I had the love of radio from small days. I used to do radio, and about 10, 11 years ago, I think it's about 11 years for end of this month. I was invited to do television news, and then I got from one to another. What is the question? Is it like how it relates to me, or what? What is the question?
How has it aided you being a media arbitrator?
Yeah. It has really, especially more than radio, when I came to television, because the filmed entertainment and music, which I was talking throughout this lecture, was every filmed entertainment, other than the silent films which were in the early 20s, 1920s, has a music track. So audio is a part of it. So the filmed entertainment, whether it's a teledrama, teleserial, Netflix, or whatever form it goes, or a theatrical film, has both the audio and the video element. So it led to, although I'm not an actor, or I have not acted and done anything to that effect, or I have not directed films or anything like that. But when you have, as a host, you partly get involved in producing as well. That means, for example, as a talk show host, I'm involved in getting, okay, what is this? Who is this guy who's going to come? What is the background video clips we can play about him? Where are we going to play them? Where are we going to do? Getting involved in that behind the scene process more than the presenting part. Presenting part would be something like this, and that creation part, and leads you to understand those individuals who are actual directors, actual producers, actual script writers, cameramen, and every people. So all those people. And you realize how sensitive industry thing you have to know about these things. It's not it is not so easy as we see, and that helped me to understand what shall I say, the technical nuance of the filmmaking and the audio making, which led me, when somebody asks advice, I can practically go into and advise, because I know what is a song. One of the main things about, if you take audio, is people are asking, okay, who has this right for a song? So there are elements right separate. Then there's a copyright of the product separate, which is done, the fixed one, and the performance rights are separate. And sometimes the producer keep, it's all. For me, I can practically think on that without looking at a law book or entertainment law book, and that helped me not only in, to answer your question, in practicing, in advising clients, but also especially when I was writing my book, or the second book. I wrote off my heart most of it, other than the relating case laws, because and my book has very less footnotes, because other than the case references, because all my experience also is in there. So yes, being involved in the trade definitely will help you to understand that. You have another question, or can I go ahead?
Not any questions.
Sorry, I can go ahead.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, now then another important thing is I want to bring in is the music industry and arbitration. Now, music industry, as you know, is very vital. A vital factor of the music industry, the relationship between the parties, which I told in the beginning, which applies across the board. There is various types of disputes in the music industry. The music industry problem comprises of few different things. many of the different relationship of ever-changing developing technology, creating of creates new problems, and new things are encountered and new solutions are left to be worked out. These many factors contribute to the great number of disputes that are arising in the industry every single day. Now, using arbitration to solve these disputes between artist and the record label, remember artist and the record label is generally where the dispute is beneficial for both artist and the record label more than letting it go for litigation. Like in the film industry, music industry too has big celebrities. Now remember the celebrity status issues I said, the cases and all that, all those issues apply here. And music, if you take A.R. Rahman, is as big an artist as Shah Rukh Khan or Aishwarya Rai in the music industry. So they are also celebrities, and the hunger and what happens when you go for litigation, the public hunger is there for information, and then the media, then the tabloid channels and the gossip channels, both wants to have a hunger for the story as well as for the person. Therefore, the same issues I said about a film star going to court will happen if they go to court for resolving issue. So you can curtail all that by confidentiality agreements and curtail all those issues which you will basically washing dirty linen in public. If you go to court, you wash the linen privately, and the confidentiality part really plays a part in music industry as well. So be that comparison as it may, okay, the music industry also has sometimes the separate arbitration centers in the Western world. There are several mechanisms of arbitration device. In England has thing called the Chartered Institute of Arbitrators in London. London teamed up with musicians, and in Europe there is a unique arbitration scheme that provides a quicker, quicker, cost-effective solution than using the courts system. So one of the things that the English CIARB will offer is mediation and arbitration, or mediation followed by arbitration. This is very much akin in the music industry because for certain reasons known to them. Now one wonders why they have formulated this system of mediation following arbitration. Why can't they do it in mediation and finish it off, or can't they straight away come to arbitration? Yes, they can come straight away to arbitration. Sometimes it might end in mediation alone. This is the reason. Most of the time, it helps in most cases, not all the cases, in doing arbitration in music industry to mediation to be followed, because the dispute between the artist and the record label arises out of actual relationship. It is important to resolve this dispute while still maintaining the good relationship between the parties. The other reason is the mechanism of mediation followed by arbitration should be adopted between the artists and the record labels as well, because they know each other's business very well, and by doing arbitration or litigation and destroying that, it might lead to a lot of competition issues afterward, and that might not be necessary when you can solve it by way of mediation and go for the binding part to the arbitration. Now, initial mediation, hence, is a good approach to encourage parties to work together and come to mutual understanding. In the music industry, it is often important to preserve this, all because of preservation of relationship. For this reason, the music industry, or rather entertainment contracts in the music industry, has developed what we call a step clause in any agreement between the artist and the record label. This is a type of arbitration clause widely used in the music industry. It provides for arbitration proceeding to follow initial mediation in a case where there are unresolved issues. And so step clause traditionally, typically would read like: the parties agree to disputes, blah, 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 shall submit to organization final binding arbitration later. But initially it will say the agreement shall be submitted for, they'll put the organization there, mediation, and the matters that are not resolved through mediation shall be submitted for arbitration for final binding arbitration. Either party may commence mediation by providing the other party written notice. The parties will cooperate with one another in selecting the mediator, neutral panelists, and scheduling the mediation proceeding. The parties covenant that they will participate in the mediation in good faith, blah, blah, blah. Now afterwards, the second part of the clause says either party may initiate arbitration, that is for the balance part, with respect to matters submitted to mediation by filing a written demand for arbitration at any time following the initial mediation session or after 45 days. Generally, the 45 days rule came, I think, from England, after the date of filing the written request for mediation, whichever occurs first. The mediation may occur after the commencement of the arbitration if the parties so desire. Even that is possible, unless otherwise agreed upon by parties. The mediator shall be disqualified from serving as an arbitrator. Generally it should be, otherwise it can lead to issues. So this is a very cozy course, because the step clause is desirable option at a point when the relationship of the parties are able to be maintained as a civil relationship, and they at the same time work out their problems while also still ending with a binding solution, because a part of which they could resolve as a civil relationship was into arbitration. So that is. Anybody has questions on the music arbitration part?
There is no question on music arbitration as such, but there is one question relating to the seat of arbitration. So there is a question, Mohan. Can you hear me?
Yeah, what arbitration relating to?
Seat, relating to the seat of arbitration.
Seat, okay.
Okay, so where would be the seat of arbitration if the contract is violated? That's, for example, if a movie is released a day before. That's his question.
No, I didn't get the question. Can you repeat the question again?
Where would be the seat of arbitration if the contract is violated? And he gives an example, if a movie is released a day before.
That question is not complete. Can you tell him to expand on that?
Yes.
Before means really.
Send a message to
it deals with the distribution agreement, and we'll have to see on that.
Okay,
right?
all right.
So really, I can.
From Saravanan, it says, is there any specialized arbitration center in India or Sri Lanka for entertainment and media arbitration?
Sri Lanka, no, but India has these same, like in America, India has these unions. If you are a member of the union, unions will have their own way of doing it. But to my knowledge, there is no, I think Saravanan would be able to chip in on that if he has. I have not come across a specialized arbitration center like in US and the UK I mentioned to India. So, yeah, there's no special place. See, it's like this. Every industry will not have a specialized arbitration center per se. They will have commercial arbitration centers which can do different things. Now, Sri Lanka also has commercial arbitration, ICPL arbitration center, which is one of the things. They take any type of arbitration. What I'm trying to have here is the person you are putting on board there as to arbitrator has to be somebody who's inside out of knowledge of the trade. With the construction, it's a different person. Yeah, even within the entertainment industry, like I said, there are so many different knowledge. You need expertise knowledge. So don't put a musician to judge on a film. Don't put a filmmaker to judge on music. It might not be the same result. Or a writer of a book to judge on how a film is made. That I think there was an example like that. So it's like that.
One last question. When many boundaries or countries involved in any industry, whether film or music, how should the jurisdiction of arbitration be decided? And how will the award of the arbitration be enforced? And this is a question from Dilani.
Can you come again on the question? Actually, sorry, I didn't get the full question.
When many boundaries or countries involved in any industry, whether film or music, how should the jurisdiction of arbitration be decided? And how will the award of the arbitration be enforced?
See, jurisdiction always should be decided. You have to understand where this product is going to. If it is, see, there are two ways that I can answer that question. If it is a production of a music or this thing, you have to know who are the people who are getting involved in the production. There are several people, artists, the writers, that is the creators, then the producers who are putting it together, and the finances. Now, All this can be one person. A person like Michael Jackson will put his money, write the music and the song, his production company will produce it, and he's the one person. So there is no need of writing any agreements. But generally, these are about 4 different people. So if these 4 different people all are in Sri Lanka, then obviously arbitration's jurisdiction should be Sri Lanka. But this very product, now if it is distribution agreement, right? Distribution agreement, generally, distribution, you'll say, I make a, it's a song from America, Capitol Records, for example. Now the song is distributed by several different people across the globe. So if somebody violates those copies or some kind of a distribution agreement is violated. Now, for example, if there's a agent for Capitol Records in India, you can't take you can't take the Capitol Records India person for somebody who has illegally downloaded and violated if he has taken steps to protect this. But if the agent or if the person whom you have given it to distribute in India or Sri Lanka has not taken the necessary precautions to protect the selling of the product, and then what happens? The product is compromised. Then what happens is that you will have to think where you are going to have the arbitration seat. Now the practical question is this: practical question. Generally, seat and jurisdiction is decided by the person who has a bargaining power. Now, if the Capitol Records in America, which has a big bargaining power, if I am a person from India or Sri Lanka, I want to be his agent to distribute stuff, I will agree to his arbitration, right? In California, he is not going to say, okay, I'm going to sell 1 million, or you're going to sell me 10 million copies. No, in India, so therefore I will also, in your distribution agreement, allow you to arbitrate there. Sometimes if it is 10 million copies of a particular song is the biggest thing, maybe. So if the bargaining power shifts to me, if the bargaining power is still with him, then I will have to agree to his bargaining power and go for that arbitration. And when the arbitration is done in California, I will obviously have to spend and go and abide by that order. Otherwise, he can enforce that order against me. That depends on the reciprocal enforcement of mutual enforcement of court orders. If those two countries has, that's another issue. That's another major issue. So I don't know whether I was clear. Let me come back on it again. Now, Capitol, we'll say I get rights to sell Capitol Record catalog music in India and Sri Lanka, and I manage to sell 100 million copies every year from whatever they are doing. I have a lot of bargaining power. I may have an initial distribution agreement saying the arbitration is there. Later, I will say, look here, I'm selling this much of material. If something goes wrong, arbitration is in India. I'm not going to come to America. So that guy will look at it and see, okay, I get a lot of business from him. I'll agree to him. And if something violates, he will have to come to India and file the action there, and then not file action, have the arbitration and get an order. If it's correct, order will go for him. Otherwise, he will lose it. But if it is the reverse, if I'm selling like only about a very small amount of this thing, and I still want to have Capitol Records agency, I will have to give it to his thing. I hope, Arshita, I answered that question. A bit lengthy though.
So, do you have anything else to carry forward, or can you conclude?
Yeah, arbitration, let me see. Yeah, I touched upon the, there are also something I want to tell before something. Submitting the music to contractual, let me see. Right. One of the things you have to understand is there has been also resistance in the music industry for arbitration. Now, those resistance, this will be my last point. After that, I'll go for more questions if you have. Many artists might actually want the publicity litigation to expose the questionable business practice of a record label. In such a situation, because they will get sympathy if the record label are exploiting them. In those situations, the artist will not want to go for arbitration. And thinking these things in mind, they will say, no, we will go for litigation, because in litigation, the reasons, situations I told you comes out, it's exposed to the public, and it's bad for the company, and then they will take more measures, a deterrent effect will be there, and because of that, some artists will want to do that. This is the music industry. Artists are also not only, artists are not the only ones, but to object for submitting dispute area. Record labels also, there's some resistance in sometimes. This is This is because record label says that litigation involves more law and precedents, and therefore allowing parties to draft future agreements more carefully. They want to have a precedents, binding precedents. So because of that, they would like to go for litigation instead. And another obstacle in convincing music companies to use ADR is that their in-house counsel may have a lack of training in that area, or the corporation may be unable to determine whether mediation or arbitration is appropriate or what, right? So that is where I think I can stop in that. In-house counsel, the training of in-house, now India has a lot of big entertainment companies. I'm sure they have in-house counsel, in-house people. They may lack this internal nuance of the value of arbitrating, the value of dispute resolution of that court. Those people has to be trained, and that is where I believe you can come, the Indian the arbitration sector can come forward and do some training. So I like to conclude with the words, I hope I'm pronouncing this correct. Mere dosse picture abhi baki hai. The picture is not over. I hope I got that pronunciation correct. Right. Did I get it correct? You can ask your questions now.
Okay, so yeah, we're done with the questions mostly. So thank you so much. It was wonderful having you today, Chanakya. Well, I'm really delighted to have you all in today's session, and thank you very much for joining us. Thanks, Chanakya. Thanks for a classic presentation on media industry arbitration. It was great.
Harshita, there's one we need to make an announcement. Next week, again, friends, we are having another topic in which Datuk Sundaraju is to address us on international arbitration writing, award writing. So that's going to be very interesting. Since you had come to that thanking, I thought we had missed it, so I am again.
I must tell you, Harshita and others, thank you again, Saravanan and Anand and everyone for giving this opportunity. But I must tell you that I only touched the surface. But I said was just the tip of the iceberg. There's a lot to go in that. You can't do it in a presentation. But anybody you can feel free to contact me through the arbitration center or directly, and I'll be happy to assist you.
Thanks, Chanakya. The content was very informative and fascinating. I hope our participants have found it useful too. And we have a next session on how to write an international arbitration award, a very, very exciting topic, I know. It is scheduled on the 8th of May. The speaker is Sundra Raj. He's the president of Asian Institute of Alternative Dispute Resolution based in Malaysia. So the invitation will be circulated sooner. And in the meantime, hope you all continue to stay healthy and happy in the coming days. So we'll see you next week with how to write an international arbitration award. Thanks, Chanakya. It was wonderful having you with us today.
Thank you. Happy lockdown training for everyone. This is good. See you then.